And running a little behind. Oops, actually, top of everything else. Let's move on. Which of course messes everything up. All right, adjust the cord. All right, now, as I'm running a little behind on the prep work, but not too much behind. At this point, all I really have to do is chop up a few vegetables, and we will be ready to go. All right. I've got a little male blackie that was him up. Leave him on the. Oh, I see. So you've got yourself a feral cat. Well, best of luck. All right. Hubby says hi to the Chaos Crew. Well, thank you very much, Val, as well. Hello to your hubby. And yeah, I'm a few minutes early because, again, I'm getting the boring prep work done. It's just about all done. All I have left to do is a little bit of chopping. And then we will get started. Oh, let me get the wastebasket. That will help considerably. Keep your workspace clean and all that. Anyway, the stove is heating up, so we're not doing too badly. My throat is a bit hoarse this week, only because I caught yet another cold last weekend. Put me under. But I am doing better now. And so here we are. As always, I do not want to cut myself with a knife. It has been several years since I've cut myself with a knife, and hopefully it won't happen again. That, of course, is one of those kitchen hazards that everybody runs into. The fewer times it happens, the better. That's why I'm starting with the onions this time. Scraper. Never fails. Always, always, always when chopping onions, I always get them all over the place. At this moment, I'm glad I don't have a dog because he would come sniffing at the onions, probably start gobbling them up, and then wonder what the hell I was feeding him. All right, there's that. Next would be a little bit of celery. Put the celery in with the onions because I will be throwing them in at the same time to soften. Anyway, yeah, as the description of this video says, this is going to be a very easy dish. It's one that I made last weekend. It turned out even better than I expected, and apparently a fair number of the viewers on my channel seem to like it because I received several requests for the recipe, and that's why I figured, well, you might as well do this here tonight on Wednesday. Gives us something to do on Wednesday. We get the recipe. And best of all, tomorrow, when I have guests again, I will have something to serve them. So it's kind of like a win-win situation here. The fact that teenagers actually ate this is also a good sign as far as I'm concerned. Cynthia fed her troops dumpster delight. Ah, yes, dumpster delight. Also known as clean out the fridge night, which is certainly one of the most popular dishes you can make in cast iron or really any time at all. And at this moment, I'm glad I've got a fairly sharp knife. It may not be one of those legendary knives you can shave with, but it's, I'd have to say it's not bad at all. I just got to be careful at this point because it can at least cut through these carrots without any real difficulty. And by doing this, the carrot will be much less likely to roll all over the place. There we go. And with that, all right. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, once again to Cast Iron Wednesday. As we always say, this is a long-running tradition that a number of the YouTube foodie channels and cooking channels have been doing on Wednesdays for the last, well, at least the last decade or so. Essentially, we just do that. We do a video of having fun with cast iron each Wednesday, and it's become popular enough tradition that, well, again, I am only one of quite a few of the, well, at least quite a few of the smaller channels that do a Cast Iron Wednesday video. And anyway, any excuse to play with cast iron is a good one, which of course is why we're here. Right now, we are not using a cast iron knife. This is rather just, this is my chef's knife. It is carbon steel, in fact, because, and what's more, man, this knife is going on 13 years old. It was a birthday present back in 2012. Boy, time is certainly flying when I'm really am able to date a fair number of the pieces in my kitchen like that. But as you can see, I've gotten almost daily use from this particular chef knife, and it does a, well, I think a decent job for things like, excuse me, for things like cutting up carrots, for instance. Hello as well to VL I'm thinking of getting a mandolin slicer. I love my knives, but I'm running out of time. Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah, they always say those mandolins are kind of risky, but they really get the job done, especially if you want to do really, really thin slices. You know, we're talking things like potatoes au gratin, and potato chips and fun stuff like that. Not to mention ratatouille, which I've made a few times. What are we cooking? Carrots? Well, we will be cooking carrots along with celery, onions, you know, your usual mirepoix to help flavor the ground beef, or rather hamburger, that we will be using to make tonight's dish, which is in fact just that. The seasoned hamburger pot pie that I prepared last weekend, and I will be doing this again live here tonight. Couple of reasons. One is that the pot pie last weekend turned out really much better than I expected. I'm more than happy to do a longer video of it. And also, since I will be having a little more company tomorrow, well, this way I'll have something to serve them. You know, make it tonight and I'll be able to serve it to them tomorrow. So we are not doing too badly at all. And with that, that takes care, get rid of this. That takes care of the chopping, which means we are really just about done with the prep work. Ugh. Yeah, that is, if I don't spill these carrots all over the place. Well, there are plenty of carrots here, probably more than I need, in fact. So, all right. Of course, I pretty much eyeballed everything anyway. But there we are now. So anyway, hello again to Rocket Caver, and hello to Fuzzfork8 and Greg Hart and William Hurt, and hello Honey Badger as well, and and to everybody else who has been kind enough to visit my channel tonight, where we are going to be indeed playing with cast iron. In fact, I have it heating up on the stove right now, and then we will be doing some. Then from there, we will move it into another cast iron dish, which once I simply move this knife out of the way so that nobody's in trouble, I will be able to show off a piece of cast iron right now, and that would be the large cast iron casserole dish. Is there a stain on this lens? It's starting to look like it. Give me one more second. This up as quickly as we can. There we go. Now, as I said, okay, yeah, this actually was a Christmas present for my brother 2 years ago when I moved here to New York, in fact, and that was nice of him. Yeah, this is part of the Lodge Bakeware series that they premiered several years ago. It has the modern day Lodge handle, as you can see, which has the Lodge logo and the 1896 on the other side. And this is your typical 9 by 13 casserole dish, only then this one happens to be bare cast iron. So that actually makes it kind of unusual in itself. And yeah, I'm more than happy to keep putting this through its paces and getting some use out of it. And hello as well to, let me see, Fuzzfork8. And having said all that, this is one of the two pieces of cast iron that we'll be using, as I mentioned. But now we can move on to the other piece of cast iron that I have used quite a few times on this channel, and we will be using once again tonight. It's time once again for the Lodge cast iron wok. That's because, well, as I said, useful kitchen tool for just for using in just about anything, not only stir fries here, but in this case, it's since this thing is 14 inches across, it's also big enough for me to be able to brown about 2 pounds of ground beef all at once. Make sure this cord is still all right. And I did forget one other thing. Since I heated this up, I have to dig out my glove. There we go. And now we are ready at last. I'm going to move this over a little bit so you'll have it in the center. Or, let me see. Let's try this. I want to be sure I don't get my arm all into the in front of the lens, which is something I seem to do all too often. There we go, at last. All right, enough talking. Well, I'll still be talking, I'm afraid, but let's get some cooking done, which of course simply means breaking up this ground beef here, or hamburger rather. And as I said in the description before, the reason why I'm calling this hamburger is because, again, make it more appealing to kids, especially teenagers. This is why we are actually making what I'm calling a hamburger pot pie in that particular casserole dish. Of course, if you don't have these utensils, you can do just the same for everything here in cast iron skillets. You can use a nice big, maybe a 12-inch cast iron skillet to sear all of this, to sear all of this ground beef. And then from there, you could either use the same 12-inch skillet, which probably wouldn't be a bad plan, or maybe even a different cast iron dish to actually prepare the casserole, or the pot pie, rather. There's really nothing to it. All I'm really needing to do, in fact, is get everything here nice and brown. And I did forget one other thing as well. One second. Need a separate metal bowl because I'm going to be draining out the liquid. And of course, when cooking ground beef, the question is to drain or not to drain. In this instance, I am deliberately draining it because we're going to use that drained fat to, well, for more cooking, especially since after all of this is done, we will then be making ourselves just that, a pot pie filling, which essentially could be called a very, very thick gravy or roux. All right, might even need to turn up the heat just a little bit, but it's really only a matter of getting everything nice and browned, which of course is not going to take long at all. And hello, Jamie Ledgerwood as well. Rada knives, good steel, takes and holds an edge quite well. Yes, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. VL Triple X, I'm making sauteed spinach and mushrooms with bacon, garlic, and a little balsamic vinegar, all of which sounds good. I don't have a Rada knife, I'm afraid. I have to say my knife is actually a French-made Sabatier. Not trying to brag, but as I said, it was a birthday present back in 2012. And again, I have gotten more than 12 years worth of use out of that. And it's still going strong too, even though I have seriously abused that knife over the years. In my attempts to sharpen it, among other things, I actually was dumb enough to take it to a knife sharpener who turned out to be very poor quality. And as a result, that knife now does not really have a straight edge underneath, unfortunately. And that is something I'm going to have to fix one of these days, or have fixed more likely. Although, excuse me, although I do still do my best to keep it sharp, about as sharp as I can, in that I hone it regularly. Maybe every couple of years or so, I do try to take it to another knife sharpener. All right. Yeah, I have made several attempts to try to sharpen my own knives, and my attempts have been, excuse me again, I'm sorry. Like I said, I had a cold last weekend. My attempts to sharpen my knives have not been very great. I think it's largely because I have not put enough effort into it, in that if you really want to sharpen your knives, you've got to put a lot of practice into it. I mean, there's no denying that. And frankly, I have not done so, largely because I have a life, unfortunately, which consists of a full-time job during the day, seeing my new family now a lot of times in the evening, and finding time to do my cooking videos. So between all that, I have not had much time to do a lot of knife sharpening. Anyway, anyone who wants a cheap knife that holds an edge, Dexter's work well. Well, there is a reason why Dexter Russell knives are in just about every restaurant kitchen all across the country. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. They are very, very durable. I mean, you do have to hone them regularly, but they certainly do a good enough job that you will be able to cut, well, just about anything. At least anything that you use in a regular kitchen. I definitely gave a Dexter knife to one of my dear friends as a Christmas present. And that I thought was very amusing because thanks to that TV show, at least now she was able to show her friends that she has a huge deadly knife that says Dexter on it. Okay, and it looks like this ground beef is almost browned at this point. And interestingly enough, there doesn't seem to be as much liquid here as the last time. That's interesting. So, in that case, I may have to compensate and maybe use a little bit of cooking oil. I guess that's what I get for using fresh ground beef today. All right. Yeah, no joke. Look in thrift stores. People give away good knives. This is true. Unfortunately, about 98% of all the kitchen utensils, especially the knives that you can find in cooking stores, are crap. Most of them are cast-offs from Dollar General and Dollar Tree, unfortunately. Once in a great while, you can indeed find a quality knife there in a thrift store. I have, in fact, found a couple. one of which I have in my camping trip, in fact, so that when I go camping, I will have a decent knife with me. But it is rather difficult to find a really, really good kitchen knife at thrift stores. But it can be done. Only within the last couple of years, I managed to score a forge craft, for instance, which I've also shown in a number of my videos. And I do believe we are already at the point where this is at least fairly decently browned. How much liquid do we have in this? Not really that much, it seems. Okay. Well, let me see what I can do to reserve a little bit of this liquid at least. Dig out a spoon here. I want to do this in a manner where I just want to try to get the liquid and not necessarily the meat. Well, it is starting to bubble, so yeah, there definitely is some, it is definitely rendering out some liquid, though. And don't worry, I will not be throwing this liquid out. I'm going to be using it in the next two steps of this dish. Excuse me. My apologies again. Actually, I'm getting more than I thought out of this. So we're not doing too badly here. I mean, this is 2 pounds of ground beef, so yeah, I should indeed expect a fair amount of liquid here. Just have to be a little bit more patient. This is actually not turning out too badly at all. Nice. All right. And with that, I think we're just about done because now I have to press down on the meat to get some decent liquid. So I actually managed to reserve more than I expected. Cool. All right, that means next thing we do is aside, get my wok spatula back out, get a metal bowl, and start reserving this so that I'll be able to use the same wok to cook the vegetables. And really, once the vegetables are done, this meat will go back in and we will have our pot pie filling. So that's what I mean. This is actually not difficult at all. And yeah, actually, it looks like I managed to take care of most of that liquid because the rest of this is not especially greasy. So again, we are not doing too badly here. All right. Oh, yeah, this is definitely hot too. I sharpen my Scandi knives on a flat stone. Well, you definitely have more experience than I do, that's for sure, William Hurt. Ground beef has a lot of added water in it. Well, that is also true. But this is why we reserved it, so that now we can pour some of it back out. Start using this to cook our vegetables. And we'll start with the carrots because the carrots are, of course, tough. And it's really only a matter of cooking these until they begin to soften. Which, in a hot cast iron pan, really will not take that long at all. All right. Sam Ostroff. I did a knockoff Serbian chef knife. Oh, pick up a knockoff Serbian chef knife on Amazon for $18. Prime Day special. That's quite heavy and a lot of fun. Oh, yeah. Well, the thing about knives, you know, you can make just about anything into a decent knife just by sharpening it well enough. The question is, how long is it going to stay sharp, and how long will that blade hold out anyway? And if the answer to both of those is it stays sharp for a while and holds out for a while, then you've got yourself a pretty decent knife. in a drawer, in fact, I have an unused knife that I was given as a Christmas present a couple of years ago, unfortunately. That's something I really think I need to donate. And that is one of those, that was also an imitation rip-off knife. It calls itself a Damascus knife, claims to be Japanese, but in fact is made in the Middle East. But I received it as a present anyway, so I didn't pay anything for it. All right, I think, where did I put that now? Always something. I think I'll just cover these carrots for a couple of minutes. All right. I had a come to Jesus meeting with my son when he used one of my best knives to cut zip ties off a fence panel. Ouch. Yeah, I know that feeling too. One of my good knives was broken in a similar matter as well by a house guest who came and used that knife for something, and they quite literally cracked the blade and didn't tell us. I did not find out until after they had left. Suffice to say, those people were never welcome in my home again. Yeah. First night of trap shooting and low man on the team. Right. Brifisol and it allows the meat to absorb 30% more moisture. I used to do handle work, and a local club set me up with a father and son that made blades of any sort. They say folks like them are everywhere. Hobbyists are good enough to go pro. And I don't doubt it. I mean, as I mentioned, it's really what you really need more than anything else is just a lot of practice to sharpen knives. The Mudbrooker. Hello. You need a Ginsu knife. It can cut aluminum cans, shoe leather, and concrete blocks and still be sharp enough to shave a tomato so thin it'll last a month. Oh, yeah. Now, how much would you pay? You will get not only the Ginsu knife, you'll also get the spiral potato peeler. We'll also throw in a set of steak knives. And while we're at it, we'll also include a can of GLH great looking hairspray. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I grew up with the Ginsu Knives commercials in the 70s, and I will certainly never forget them. All right. At this point, this should probably help to soften these, which means you can go on to the next step of the vegetable. That would be onions and celery, which soften much easier. That's why I did the carrots first. They'll also release their own liquid. So once it looks like these things are starting to shrink, really the hard part will be over, and it'll just be a matter of mixing in the ground beef. That's how easy it is. I just realized I forgot to salt and pepper the ground beef as I was cooking it. Well, I will have to season everything when it all comes back in. And I know for a fact it's not going to take long for these to shrink. In fact, unless my eyes deceive me, they might be starting to shrivel up already. All right, I sharpen knives okay, Honey Badger, but I have a problem with getting the last 1/8 of an inch of the top and bottom sharp. Not sure why. Now, how much would you pay? There's 3 easy payments of, I think it was, in fact, back in those days, I don't think it was even $9.99. I think it was 3 easy payments of $5.99 or something like that. And then came the Ginsu 2, because apparently the Ginsu wasn't good enough. But yeah, that was the one. In America, the hand can be used to split wood. Yeah, but you can't split a tomato with it. Yeah. I love the smell of cooking mirepoix in the evening. This, of course, is one reason why it is so popular in dishes. I mean, this combination just smells so good, and I haven't even added the meat. So I should probably throw in a little bit of salt and pepper already. Not too much. Yeah, I love my old-fashioned pepper grinder, which I found at Savers for $2. I have no intention of ever getting one of those automatic or battery-powered pepper grinders, partly because it's nostalgia for me. For my grandmother, because she had one of those old-fashioned pepper grinders. All right. The tip always licks, never had a problem with that. Yeah, exactly. Make the best julienne fries you've ever tasted. All right. I love how celery smell really gets on you and sticks around. Well, there is that. You can't deny that as well about celery. What's more, it also, if you don't mind me saying so, you can also smell it when you pee afterwards. So, yes. But celery is still delicious, and I will live with that. Okay, we are at the point now where we can throw the ground beef back in. And get everything mixed together. And here's the part where I have to start seasoning it all. Definitely gonna have to season it before we start making our roux here, which is what we will do. Anyway, as I mentioned, the Lodge cast iron wok, which I've used many times here on these live videos, and I've described just about every aspect of it, like the handles and the fact that it's 14 inches across and the fact that it's really, really thick on the bottom, and that I've managed to still managed to warp it when I was first learning how to cook in cast iron. Nonetheless, it still works fantastic, and with any luck, I'll be using this wok for the rest of my life. Okay, definitely time to start seasoning. That means go with the salt, probably enough, and pepper. Nothing like fresh ground pepper. I have pretty much given up getting pepper powder or powdered pepper at the store, simply because rough ground pepper is so much better. I do still sometimes buy bags of rough ground pepper at places like Middle Eastern and Indian markets, but I am pretty much done with pepper powder. Okay, there's a start for you. Next, garlic powder, of course. While we're at it, also throw in some Saison. This is seasoning I've definitely learned to appreciate. Its flavor and color. Likewise with this adobo seasoning. Yeah, my new family, I guess you could call them, they pretty much live on adobo and Saison. I've already said they're a Jamaican family, so of course. And yeah, they're the ones who are going to be visiting tomorrow too. So this way I can almost be sure that they will eat this. Mm. All right. Once we do this, I'm still going to have to bake this in the oven. So I'm actually not doing too badly for time. Going to have to prepare the pie crust, but that's easy enough. Kind of cheating there this time. All right. Anyway, vintage, yeah, we love vintage cookware. Hello, Ongo Gablogian. I need an Atlas grinder. Best one ever. And I'm actually not familiar with an Atlas grinder, but I will have to take a look and see what it's like then. But yes, I do love vintage cookware. It really does stem from my, from my catching the cast iron bug when I was first learning how to cook. And so from there, I started collecting vintage cast iron, which in turn started leading to collecting things like vintage knives, vintage utensils. In fact, about a year or so ago at the flea market, I managed to find a set of vintage aluminum garden tools. So yeah, I like it. I don't go exclusively with vintage. Like for instance, I do have my KitchenAid mixer, which actually has a meat grinder attachment on it. Okay, so far so good. But now that we've done this, time to start changing this from a beef stir fry into a pot pie filling. That means one more thing I forgot in the fridge. That means, of course, it's time to make ourselves a roux. And that means, of course, if you're going to make a roux, you're going to have to use a lot of butter. And where did I put my butter knife? Here we are. Not quite all of this, but maybe about half of this. So there's a start. Mix this in until the butter is melted, which will not take long, despite the fact that it's still hard out of the fridge. However, this wok is definitely hot at this point. All right. Have you ever had fresh uncooked peas? Totally different from cooked. Oh, wasabi peas. Good snacking. Sugar peas are the best. I don't give a damn. I'm not eating peas. Shit. We use pre-ground for our chowder. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I have said more than enough times how much I love stir frying in this wok here. But on the other hand, you really can do the same thing in a cast iron skillet or in a Dutch oven even. Just use the Dutch oven, just that, to make your stir fry. I just happen to think that the wok does it better. That's what it's designed for. I mean, we've got all this surface space here. Regardless of what you use to make this dish, this is also, I like the fact, as I discovered last weekend, that this is still quite an easy dish to make. Not sure if you would call it a weekend or weeknight dish, rather. On the other hand, I am using a double batch, 2 pounds of ground beef instead of 1, because again, I intend to cook for several people, including kids. If I were to make this for myself, I would definitely only have this recipe here, which means it would probably be done all that much faster. All right, the butter is just about melted. Next, throw in some flour, of course, for the roux. And yeah, I'm at the point where I'm eyeballing it for my roux. Just got to be careful here. Come on. Don't want to. There, I should probably stop now before I end up dumping like the entire container of flour into this. Not that I've ever done that before. Anyway, mix it all together. And that will be the start, which means from here we will then start adding liquid. All right. VL XXX. My next kitchen purchase is going to be a deli slicer using the phrase 3/4 pound of shaved corned beef at Walmart. Gets you, okay, completely random thickness. Oh, yes, that is all too true. Do you use your large heart pan much? Mrs. Rocket will use hers nearly every week. Um, if I didn't have such a huge collection, I would be certainly using my large heart pan quite regularly. My problem is I've got so many cast iron pans. I do my best to try to rotate through them. But yes, that heart pan does make a very good skillet. It is maybe just a tiny bit larger than a number 5 in size. And of course, a number 5 is a very useful pan. I wonder if one of these days Lodge will actually come out with a number 8 size heart skillet. That would be interesting. Maybe they've got that on the plan for next year. Who knows? Anyway, this has already helped to thicken all of this, which means now get to add in all of that liquid we reserved. There's a start. And in fact, it's probably not even going to be enough, but that's fine. Because, yeah, we're trying to get this to the consistency of something like very thick gravy. Because, again, that way it'll go into our pot pie. And yet, at the same time, I am not one of those people who likes a pot pie that is so runny, it's like soup. However, you can definitely add more liquid here. So, time to open a container of beef broth. That should be enough. And if not, we'll add more. There we go. Things are looking pretty good here. Yeah, you see how this is getting more of a thick consistency? And that everything is definitely starting to hold together here, which means it should do nicely in a pot pie. A little bit, because of the flour, there's a little bit of residue on the bottom, which of course is the tasty bit. But this is not looking too badly at all. And these veggies are definitely soft. No problem there. All right. At this point, I'm going to turn off the heat, cover it again, which means now we get to go to step 3. Sorry, which means now we get to go to step 3. Let's move the microphone back over here again. And that means move over to here. I'm nervous about picking up my own shrooms, not enough experience. You and me both. I don't think I will ever be at the point where I can trust myself enough to pick my own shrooms. I will gladly remain an amateur and simply buy my shrooms. All right, that means now that we've done this, how am I going to do this? Oh, yes, that's right. Time now for our cast iron pan. And yet another thing I forgot. Crisco. Wait. So many things I forgot tonight, even though I tried to get all my prep work done. Anyway, time now to grease the pan, which is easy enough. Get this down here. All right. I love foraging, but I don't trust myself not to pick the poison when it comes to mushrooms. Yes, that is all too true. I mean, I understand that if the stem has a ring around it, it's poisonous. But my understanding is that there are a number of poisonous mushrooms that don't have that. So yes, excuse me again. I am not trusting it either. I will. Excuse me. I ate a piece of vegetable there and I choked on it. Anyway, I will definitely bow to the experts in when it comes to mushrooms. All right. Rinse my hand for just a moment. regarding how long this is taking, as I've said many times before, if I wasn't talking my way through every step of this, you could probably do this in half the time that it's taking me. I'm taking my time here, and as I mentioned, I'm talking. So, um, all right. However, I've got to put this pan to the side for the moment. And here's where, in fact, for the sake of time, we've got to cheat and use some puff pastry sheets. I love puff pastry sheets. If they weren't so darned expensive compared to your regular pie dough, especially the pie dough that you can make yourself. On the other hand, I've only just started looking into the possibility of making my own homemade puff pastry sheets. Because all you really do is you get some pie dough, or make some pie dough, and then from there, you coat it with butter and fold it and fold it and fold it like about a dozen times or so. All right. Right now, though, need to flatten this out a little bit so that it'll fit into that cast iron pan. If I were to use a 9x9 baking pan, this would easily fit as is, but as it stands out right now, I'm going to have to stretch it a little bit. Fortunately, that's really not too difficult, at least not when using freshly store-bought puff pastry sheets. Yeah, this thing actually is going very easily. I guess that's why those Pepperidge Farm puff pastry sheets are so popular. Not only are they really, really tasty and puffy, but they're really, really easy to handle. I mean, I'm barely putting any effort at all into this. And I'd say this looks like it's already big enough to fit into the bottom easily of this large cast iron casserole dish. So, let me see, how am I going to do this? Let's try it this way. Let's do a little bit here, a little bit there. And bam. This is really all I need. I mean, I'm not even going to bother trying to cover every inch of this with the dough, because in the end, I'm going to be taking out slices of it with a spatula anyway. But we're off to a pretty decent start as it is, and that certainly wasn't difficult. Anyway, where is Rick tonight? Puff pastry croissants are easy to make, but time-consuming as hell. Yes, exactly. Fortunately, you can make a bunch and freeze it. Puff pastry is a little more difficult than just brushing with butter and folding. You're probably right, Jim Glatar. I have no doubt about that. That's a project I'll have to embark one of these days. You know, I'm going to have to put it on my long list of things I want to do. Drape the dough over the rolling pin for easy transfer to the pan. It sprung back. It sprung back a little bit, but not much. I mean, it has still easily covered the entire surface of this pan here. I never did have my own personal cow pasture. Okay. The Food Wishes channel has an excellent video on making croissants. Same process as puff pastry. It's been a while since I've looked at Food Wishes. I'll have to take another look. However, rather than waste time, let's see what we can do now to actually get this going. Better move this microphone over a little bit more. Get out my gloves or pot holders. And here comes the walk. All right. Now from here, I just get to use my walk shovel as a shovel. Start spreading it on. Don't want to spill it all over the place, which I always do. Yeah. If I wanted to make a shepherd's pie, all I'd have to do is make mashed potatoes. And instead of covering it with puff pastry, which is what I'm going to do, I would just simply cover this with mashed potatoes. I mean, really, that's how easy this is. I mean, I pretty much came up with this myself, except that if you call using, the basic recipe that's been known around the world for about 1,000 years, coming up with it myself. However, as you can see, there's no difficulty at all with all of this meat covering this 9 by 13 cast iron casserole dish, which once again is 2 pounds of ground beef. Again, you can have this if you want. If you were to do half of this, you could probably easily fit this in like a 9-inch a number 7 size cast iron skillet. But here it is. There are 2 pounds of ground beef, 3 large carrots, 2 big stalks of celery, and a large onion. Simply fry it all together. This is hot. I better put this away now. Season it. And add your flour and liquid to make it into your pot pie filling. And having done that, I'm just going to have to do the same thing with the other sheet of puff pastry. Anywho, par baking the crust might be a choice. Well, not to worry there. This crust is actually going to turn out pretty nice. I've got a 400-degree oven preheated. Where did I put it? Here it is. Start rolling this out again. I mentioned the rolling pin, I think. In fact, I believe it was here on this channel that I premiered this French-style rolling pin. That was because I either lost or gave away the marble rolling pin that I had actually inherited from Mom. I was rather upset about that. However, I decided to take a chance and try this French rolling pin. And I loved it. I still love it. Not just because it's so easy, it's just that. It's just a stick, just a piece of wood. But I find it works really, really well. And I have long since then been a convert for these French rolling pins. All right. Carefully. All right. You had mentioned maybe just putting this on the rolling pin, I guess. However, this didn't work too badly. Bam. Oh, this is still okay. And there we are. In fact, it's good enough that I can even crimp the edges here a little bit. So yeah, this really did not take a lot of effort. And as I've said enough times tonight, I am going at a very slow pace. If you were to do this yourself, you almost certainly would have this done much faster than me. All right. It was 72 a week and a half ago. Oh, okay. Yeah. Keep it kitchen tools. Keep it simple. Yes, exactly. I do my best to avoid unitaskers. I have maybe one or two of them, of course. I think everybody does. But, excuse me, yet again, for the most part, I just have your basic kitchen tools. And yet my kitchen drawers are still stuffed just like everybody else's. All right, that means now bowl and dig down deep into my guarded security vault and bring out an egg. Because, of course, we've got to have an egg wash. All right. That means, where did I put my basting brush? I know I took out my basting brush. Please tell me, where did I put my basting brush? Oh, it's right here. Okay. Right here. Anyway. In fact, I'll just use the same basting brush to mix up this egg. You know, spare ourselves an extra utensil to wash. I've actually gotten some silly comments. It's like, oh yeah, you have to wash only one more dish. I mean, gee, how frugal, you know, about when I do things like save an extra dish so I don't have to wash it. Of course, they're not the ones washing it. All right. Only unitasker is the fire extinguisher. Now we get to decorate the top with vents. Yes, exactly. But yeah, only unitasker is the fire extinguisher. And even then, I understand there were 1 or 2 episodes of Good Eats. Actually, let me get this closer to the camera for you now, folks. I understand there were 1 or 2 episodes of Good Eats where he improvised something and actually used a fire extinguisher as some kind of a tool. I'm not sure what he did with it. I mean, I guess he must have probably quick frozen something. But apparently he actually did use the fire extinguisher in the kitchen. Of course, on the other hand, the fire extinguisher is a one-shot. So really, that would make it kind of expensive. And really, other than doing it on Good Eats, it's not something you would do on a regular basis. In my other kitchen, not here, I ended up with 2 kitchen fire extinguishers. Because, of course, I lost mine, had to buy another one, and then, of course, found the original. So then I ended up with 2 kitchen fire extinguishers. Here's hoping, of course, that I never have to use them, but I'm glad to have them. Oh, yes. A little bit more in the corners. And, like you said, get out this here butter knife and just do, oh, I'm not going to be too fancy. Just do a few slits here, here, and here. Also, based on last weekend, it's only going to take like maybe about 25 minutes or so to bake this pot pie in the oven. So, in fact, this should be done just in time. But yeah, there's really, as you can see, really was not difficult at all. And if somebody like me can make one of these, believe me, you can make it. Now, finally, from here, season this up a little bit. Let's throw on a little bit more pepper, because I love pepper. Make it a savory top or crust. And what else did I want to put on this? I'm debating whether maybe I should throw a little dried rosemary onto there. Only a little bit. Rosemary or thyme? I think rosemary, probably, because rosemary is not as strong as thyme in flavor. If I can find it. Oh, there it is. Not too much, but enough. Or did I use parsley last weekend? I think I used parsley. Well, this is still fine. There we are. All right. And just like that, we have our hamburger pot pie, which, as I said, I call hamburger to make it more appealing to teenagers. God, yeah, I actually have to start catering to teenagers now. Now that I have a new family of friends. And yeah, I've learned a few things already. Okay, that means let's talk more action and let's do some action. Time to get this into the fridge. Time to get this into the oven. This thing here. All right. There we are. And now it's just a matter of waiting. The oven, once again, is preheated to no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which will be enough to nicely brown and bake the topping of the top of this pie. And this, yet again, is one of those pies where we pre-cooked the inside. So know that it is not going to be raw and underdone on the inside. So when the topping is done, it's done. All right. Here I go again because of my cold. Okay, that means two things. One, of course, we have some time to fill, which is where we get to have a discussion, of course. And the other is I need to provide something interesting for you folks to look at. So rather than me, because I'm not that interesting. That means, let me see, what do I have on the stove here? I have another kitchen utensil or another cast iron pan that I've gotten a ton of use out of ever since I found this at a flea market in 2021. So this is only going on about 4 years. This is a Birmingham Stove and Range number 10 Century Cookware Series skillet. And I have mentioned once or twice the silly arguments that have been going on in the cast iron collecting community, especially on Facebook, over the difference between Red Mountain and Century Cookware. And I really don't give a flying fig about that. What I do know, though, is that this particular pan does actually prove a couple of things about Birmingham Stove and Range. Namely, it proves, number one, notice it has the marking here, 12 and 7/16 inches, and it only says 10 on the bottom. It does not say number 10. And yet, the fact that it says 12 and 7/16 inches, that indicates this was actually made after BS&R changed the sizes of a number of their pans. And I've been informed by the experts that apparently this actually happened around the year 1979. So this pan actually dates to maybe the 1980s, 1979 or later, and yet it only has a number 10 on it. What does that mean? Well, it means that in some ways, the quality control for little things like this, especially the markings on their pan, was always a little questionable throughout the entire history of the company at BS&R. In that you can find pans from just about any era that have these weird little quirks to them. Of course, it hardly matters when it comes to cooking, and that's why they let it pass and go into the pass quality control, because who cares in the long run if this is marked with a 10 as opposed to a number 10. The other thing, again, the 7/16 does in fact indicate that this is 1979 or later. However, this pan does not have a made in USA mark on it. And that proves that BS&R did not mark every single one of their pans with a made in USA mark after they started that in 1967. There were exceptions to it. I don't know what the ratio is of pans with the made in USA versus pans without the made in USA. I would have to think that probably the majority of those pans did in fact have a made in USA mark, but not all of them. And why did they not give all of them a Made in USA mark? Well, it really comes down to business decisions, of which I have no clue. I certainly was not there at the company. I was not a member of their marketing division. I was not there trying to gauge the market in the late 1970s or so. My best guess would be this could have been made maybe for business customers. They could have shipped this out to, I don't know, restaurants, resellers, companies like that really it didn't matter to them whether or not there was a Made in USA mark on it. I mean, the Made in USA mark was entirely a marketing move anyway, meant to appeal to people, appeal to people's patriotism, and maybe give it just that much more of a nudge to get them to buy this pan because it was made in the USA. So my theory is this could have perhaps been made for just that, shipping to a restaurant or some other business. All I know is this is one heck of a cast iron pan. And yet again, though, it is still a spinner. Just about every BSNR of probably number 10 size or so that I've come across has been a spinner, unfortunately. However, this thing is still a massively useful pan, and I'm really, really glad to be able to own and use this. All right, have I talked enough yet? Let's take out the mouse and let's make this more of a two-way conversation here. All right. K Clock, I found a moderately rusted cast iron pan on the swap table in my apartment building. How do I get rid of the rust? When you're saying moderately rusted, if it looks like it's entirely surface rust, you could very well just simply scrub it. Use barkeeper's friend, maybe even use vinegar and steel wool, and that should take off just about all of the rust. In fact, in some instances, even modern day dishwashing soap, like Dawn dish liquid, is enough to remove light surface rust from a cast iron pan. If it seems that it's a little more ingrained than that, you might want to try the vinegar soap. Do a mixture of vinegar and water, like in a bucket or a big tray or something like that, and soak it in there for, I don't know, a couple of hours, maybe overnight or so, and then scrub it off completely, wash it, and then season it. Those are two easy ways to get rid of easy or light rust on a cast iron pan. Oven cleaner is a good starter method, VL XXX. Oven cleaner will strip off all of the extra seasoning and gunk from the pan. It does not remove rust. Lye does not remove rust. That's when you go for other methods. You could go really fancy and build yourself an electrolysis tank. If you've got a good use for an electrolysis tank, then do it because it is massively useful and effective. Um, excuse me again. There I go again. I had a couple of pans in my collection that were severely rusted that I managed to really take care of using electrolysis, including my big 15-gallon cauldron. So, yes, I will certainly recommend it in that respect. Although electrolysis is really, as I said, when you really need to get down and dirty. You described that pan as just having some light rust on it, and you probably don't need to go that far. Dallas Black Cat's rules. Jamie yet made the mistake of putting some cayenne pepper airborne. Ouch, lesson learned. Well, that was certainly fun. Fuzz48, spinners serve a purpose of revolving the meal so it doesn't burn. There is that, yes. There are actually some advantages to being able to easily rotate the pan. I won't deny that. The disadvantage of a spinner is that you get a hot spot in the center. And the reason why this usually happens with big cast iron pans is probably just that. That is one of the myths of cast iron, which, yes, I will admit, the myth that this pan heats evenly. You hear that all the time. Cast iron heats evenly, and nothing does it better. That is certainly not true. And anybody with experience will know, especially if you take a big pan like this, put it on your stovetop burner, the center part here over the burner is going to get hot much faster than the rim and going up to the outside. Eventually, over time, the pan will get hot all over. But I mean, it takes quite a while to do that because cast iron is really not a good conductor of heat anyway. It will definitely retain heat, but it does not really conduct it very well. That's why you end up with warped spots in the center and hot spots in the center because the center definitely heats up much faster than the outside. How much did you do them for? Been lucky, not many spinners here, not even my Wagners. Well, that's impressive, William Hurt, because unfortunately, Wagners in particular do seem to tend to spin. Valve Flatcat's rules, I try to keep the pan moving to avoid that. I sold a number 10 BSNR today, Cynthia Wesley. Well, I hope you got a decent price for it. I mean, really, if you're in the market for vintage cookware and you are really want to get something that you'll be using in the kitchen for your entire life, I don't think you can do better than BSNR. Probably even before over Lodge for various reasons, and we've argued about that before. I suppose I could maybe in a near future video, I could try doing a showdown between BSNR and Lodge. That's been done, of course, many times. In that when I have these kind of showdowns, usually they both end up cooking great. Pie has been in for 10 minutes so far. Good point. Let me take a look. And we don't have any browning on the top yet. So there is still plenty of time yet. But thank you very much for the reminder, Greg Hart. All right. Yeah. The thing with browning is anybody who bakes pies regularly will know is that it happens almost like that. So that's why, yeah, once it starts to brown, definitely need to keep an eye on it. Spinners work fine on a gas stove. I don't mind spinners. Yes, exactly. I actually had actually, he had about a set 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 3. Nice. And so do I. I'm actually proud of that. For my BSNRs, I have a 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. What's more, I do have all of these in Century Cookware. No, I don't have a number 8 Century pan right now. I've had number 8 Centuries a couple of times, but ended up selling them or giving them away because, of course, I have a number 8 Red Mountain, which is one of my go-tos here in the kitchen. Most of my pans are spinners, but I cook with gas, so it doesn't matter, says Radagast. It reminds me of the time when I got a number 10 Wagner as a present for a couple of friends of mine. And I did warn them. I said, this pan is slightly warped. And their reply was, so are we. So they certainly didn't have any problem with that. I thought repeats show up at dinner time. A large spinner works better as a wok than a non-spinner. You might be able to say that, Kevin Brown. I won't disagree with you on that. I did mention I actually managed to warp my large wok here, and it looks like it's cool enough now that I can lift it with my hands. So let me bring this back out here. Ugh, still dirty from cooking tonight, but here is my large wok, and guess what? It spins. My large cast iron wok is, in fact, a spinner. This heavy thing, and anybody who has the large wok knows that this must have more than half an inch or so of thickness here on the bottom. And yet I still managed to warp this. But I've already told my story about that. Namely, that when I first started out in cooking in cast iron, I made the same mistake that so many people do. And that was I blasted it at the maximum heat again and again and again. And that was what ended up warping this. And, even today, there are people on the internet who will argue with you over that. Even though spinners exist, even though it's so easy to find a spinner, they will constantly say things like, cast iron is impossible to damage. You must have done something else for that to be a spinner. just like throwing a pan in the fire or something. I know, based on my experience, that's exactly what happened. It was because I blasted this thing at high heat. In fact, at first I would regularly heat this thing so hot that the inside of the pan turned white because it was burning the seasoning again and again. And if I threw some black pepper powder into the pan, it instantly, and I mean instantly, uh, burned and turned and charred and turned into ash. In that it glowed red in just a fraction of a second. So yeah, I was most definitely heating this pan way too hot. Excuse me one second. I need a drink. That's what I need. Because I'm getting over this cold and I've been talking for more than an hour. Yeah, of course of course my throat's getting dry right now. Anyway, Cynthia Wesley, now I'm gonna break the bank when I pull out a couple of my Red Mountain number 10s. Well, if you're selling those, then good luck to any of the persons who buy them. I don't have a Red Mountain number 10 myself yet. And I don't know, if I find one in the wild for a decent price, I would be seriously tempted. Yes. I might even end up replacing that Century Cookware number 12, number 10 that I just showed you. On the other hand, having that particular Century number 10 is not a bad thing, if only that I can use it for education. I described exactly what I said about it, about how the size number has helped to identify that. William, I can kill it around here with my one notches, but I ain't ready. Let me check that pot pie once again. I do believe I'm starting to see a little bit of browning on the edges. So I do believe I'm starting to see a little bit of browning on the edges. So we might be starting to get somewhere. I'd say probably within the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, it might be done. The non logo lodges get no love online. That's because they're so commonplace. Lodge is great cast iron. We all know that, but it is really abused all the time online for a couple of reasons. One of which, of course, is that antique vendors want to sell their vintage cast iron, and so they do that by bashing Lodge. The other reason is that other cast iron companies want to show off the quality of their product, and so they do that by bashing Lodge. So yes, I mean that's just how it is, the state of the market these days. VL Triple X, get it super hot again. It might straighten out. My flat griddle warps and straightens over a campfire. Really? That's interesting. It's almost like warps and straightens. I don't think I've ever seen that. Um, I- my my experience has told me that a warped pan is forever warped. And I do have at least one pan, and I'm trying to remember which one it is, that seems to feel pretty flat when it's cool, but once you heat it up, it definitely becomes a spinner. I think that might even be my Griswold number 10, but I'll have to test it and see. What I do know is that when a pan is warped, quite frankly, no, you cannot flatten it out again. I know that's what VL Triple X just said, but I have not seen that myself in my experience. Not once. Those warps, that when a pan is a spinner, it will permanently be a spinner. I have seen several examples, and there are in fact videos online of somebody saying, "What if I use a hammer to flatten this?" And so they start beating the warp spot with a hammer, and always they end up cracking it. So yes, it. I mean, you cannot flatten out a warped cast iron pan, as far as I can see. Anyone have info on Three Notch Lodge Mark US JIR finishes? Let me guess, you're talking about the famous number 14 US, I believe. You know, I myself thought that was originally like a 1940s pan myself. And I have since been proven wrong by the many self proclaimed lodge experts out there who all say that that is, in fact, a late 1960s lodge. Apparently, that particular pan, the 14 with the US, May have been one of Lodge Cast Iron's very first attempts at adding the Made in USA mark to their pans. The fact that it says US actually did give birth to a couple of rumors, which I'm sure folks here have heard already. Again, the number 14 Lodge with the US. Rumor number one, that pan was used by the military, except that there's no proof of it. Rumor number two, that pan was used by the US Forestry Service. And I don't understand that. Why the US Forestry Service? But I have heard that in more than one case. But in both instances, that is apparently not true because even Lodge Cast Iron has stated that no, those pans were not made especially for the military. What if I use a hammer to destroy my pan? Well, then, in that case, William Hurt, you'll certainly succeed. You will accomplish exactly what you set out to do. JR finishes. This particular one came out of my grandfather's hospital that was torn down in the late 60s. He operated from the 1920s through the early 60s. Wow. Oh, but operated, not your grandfather. But wow, that's actually pretty impressive. Best I can think of, if you actually have a pan that warps and then straightens out, you must have a fluke. I can't think of anything else other than a rare, very rare coincidence that caused that pan to do that. Because I certainly have not seen any examples of that myself. Not saying that they don't exist. Obviously, you have one, but it would have to be very rare. I wouldn't even mind if you could actually do a video demonstrating that because I would like to certainly see that. Pie in the oven, 20 minutes. Let me check it again. Thank you. And, oh yeah, we're starting to get some browning now. In fact, I think I had even better turn it around. All right, yeah. I'd better turn it around. I'm not sure if the microphone caught that. Go. But yeah, it's definitely starting to brown now. I'd have to say within maybe another 5 to 10 minutes, it will most likely be done. I have my mother's Lodge number 8 3-notch. Nice fuzz fork 8. You've got yourself a family heirloom there. And even if you don't use it every day, you certainly have it. I have a couple of my mom's heirlooms for that reason, and I'm really glad to have them. I thought you knew that. Wait, what are we missing here? Apart from ARC logo and current production, everything Lodge ever made was from 1967 and 1992. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. I thought you knew that, Mudbrooker. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Lodge, in fact, was only open for 2 years. They produced 1 million pans in 1964 and 1 million pans in 1992. It's pretty much as simple as that. Hog Wild Cast Iron Restoration. I have seen an Erie 11 that when warm actually lifted in the middle instead of pushed down. I told him at least it didn't spin. I do believe I have seen a couple of pans like that. In fact, I have one. And this one, in fact, is a modern day. It is my Solid Technics big skillet. You know, that really, really beautiful skillet, huge cast iron pan with the heart-shaped handles. I've used it especially making things like giant cookies, pizza, and ratatouille. And that is from Solid Technics, made in Australia, and is now discontinued. In fact, that pan is a reverse spinner. I found that out when I put another pan inside it. All right. Yeah. Are there any specific makes of cast iron more known for warping than others? You know, I would have to say Wagner. Wagner pans, for whatever reason, did seem to tend to warp more often. I have come across a fair number of Wagner number 8s that are still spinners. Um, much less so than other number 8 pans, especially large. Probably because large pans are much thicker. 3-notch large, and the number has almost a stamp as a number. Hmm. Oh yeah, I think that's I think I have a number 6 of that. In fact, myself, Ongo Gablogin. Hogwild, if I remember correctly, Stargazers was made with a slight concave bottom to keep them from spinning. That might be interesting. Having said that, well, if you don't mind me taking a moment, let me get out my Stargazer, a first generation Stargazer, and let's see what we have. Um, all right. Here's my Stargazer, which is most definitely not a spinner. And this particular Stargazer has a manufacturing date on it. Where is this? 2019 0610. This was made on June 6, 2019. And it took me a good couple of years at least before I could get some good seasoning on this Stargazer, but I'm glad I was able to do so. As I said, this thing is definitely flat. Now, you had mentioned the possibility that it might actually be concave on the inside, curving up. So, here is my butter pat skillet. You know, the one that Louis J was kind enough to send me as a present that year. What was it now? A year ago, a year and a half, I think. If I put it in, it does not seem to spin or wobble. I'm hitting it on every end. It is not wobbling or spinning. So I would have to say this particular Stargazer pan is most likely flat. And furthermore, this butter pad is also flat. So at least as far as the first generation Stargazer goes, again, this is the one before they did their grooved surface. I would have to disagree and say this thing is in fact perfectly flat, which is another good reason for me to be glad I have this. I'd pay more for large souvenir skillets, but I know all of them are low production items as compared to Griswold and Wagner's with high production. That's also true, yes. All right, let me check that. Let me check that pot pie. Oh yeah, I think we may be at that point, folks. I think it's time to take it out now and reveal it, which means I'm probably going to scorch this cutting board again. Let me get out my pot holders. And I do believe it may be time for the reveal. Let's see what you think. Oh, yeah. Nice. Check this out, folks. Now, this is one heck of a pot pie. I do believe the edges might have curled up a little bit. In fact, I can actually see some of the meat over the edge, but that's no problem. But here it is, our seasoned hamburger pot pie, number 2. I thought so. Welcome here every Wednesday. Oh yeah, hobbies. I have an undated Stargazer. They told me it was 2017. Nice. Well, congratulations on that, Hogwild. The wood could be warped versus the wobble in the pan. Anyway, yowza. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, believe you me. If this thing wasn't piping hot, I would be so tempted to tear into this myself. And this is one reason why I love puff pastry as well. I mean, it gives a really beautiful looking crust with the egg wash, doesn't it? So yeah. So this is what we set out to do tonight. All right. So now all I have to do is let it cool off, And tomorrow, when I have more house guests, yeah, you see, my friend, I guess you could call her my girlfriend. She is taking her daughter to a dentist appointment tomorrow morning. And then when they do that, they're going to drop off here. I'm going to send her to school, and she will probably hang out at least until lunchtime or so when I'll be able to drive her home. That's what my schedule is like these days. A lot of times, that's what I get for becoming friends with a family that has kids. However, while they're here, I'll be able to serve them some of this hamburger pot pie. Because, yeah, oh, yeah. Don't think that uh don't think that's good. Don't think that good booze block. Yeah, that is a booze block. Yes, it is, actually. This, in fact, was yet another Christmas present. A lot of things in my kitchen have been Christmas presents over the last 15 years or so. And believe me, I'm very grateful to everybody who's been kind enough to do that. But nonetheless, there we are. All right. In fact, let me see if I can't get a more of a close up even for you folks here. Because, as I said, this is what we've set out to do, and I do believe we've got it. So again, it took almost an hour and a half to do this because I took my time and I was yakking through every single step. If you were to set out and do this, as you can see, this is a no-brainer. I didn't even use a recipe on this. You brown the ground beef. Then you add the vegetables, your basic mirepoix, celery, carrots, and onions. Mix them all together and fry everything together. Give it all a good bunch of seasoning, obviously the kind of seasoning you want. You put it into your pie shell. You cover it, put on an egg wash, and you bake it. And here you are with a pot pie. That's how easy it is. So, thank you once again to everybody. But thank you. Yeah, I'd love to Val's Black Cats Rules. One of these days, we're going to have to find some excuse to have some kind of a get together here in mid state New York. I'm not sure what it is yet, but we'll figure something out. And nonetheless, though, it is about that time, though, because it is Wednesday night. And as I said, there we are. But thank you to everybody, though, who's been kind enough to take part in this little conversation where got to show off a couple of cast iron pieces and talk about cast iron. And yeah, we made something, all right. Something I'm looking forward to. And thank you as well to Honey Badger. Yes, where we will see you tomorrow on your regular live video. I mean, you are making a regular, you're doing a lot of good on your channel as well. You're probably doing more than me, in fact, these days. I've been trying to give you a salt cellar I made for over a year. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. That's VL Triple X. Anyway, but yes, we will see you tomorrow, Honey Badger, as well. And I appreciate the kind words Jamie Ledgerwood. And thank you to everybody who's been kind enough once again here. RT Scott and Kevin Brown. Hello, Kevin Brown, and good night. And 4M Morris family. And Granny Graham, TBD, and Greg Hart. And if this inspires you to make yourself a pot pie for your family sometime this week, good. That I consider to be about the best compliment I can get in my cooking. If somebody is actually inspired to try one of my recipes, and especially if they like them. Because, of course, that's the whole point of this. Cast iron cooking is meant to be fun. All cooking is meant to be fun, but I find cooking in cast iron to be especially fun. And it's things like this that really are why I love doing this every week. This and having you folks here on my channel every week, because you are the ones really who make this interesting. Oh, great. Hold on. Call coming in. Something's going on. Hello? Yes. Hi, what's up? I won't be in about 5 minutes or so. Just give me about 5 minutes. All right. I'll call you back in about 5 minutes. All right. I'll call you in about 5 minutes. Okay. All right. Okay. Anyway, sorry for the delay, folks, but I mean, we are just about done anyway. So, yeah, real American cooking cast iron. Well, I certainly hope so. But shower time. But thank you to everybody who's. Oh, what brand of crust? These were simply your typical Pepperidge Farm puff pastry sheets. Nothing special about that. I have not yet made an attempt to make homemade puff pastry crust, although I am working on it. Okay, but it is about time to to call it another night. So we will relax, everybody, and I will. And of course, again, Honey Badger is having his cooking tomorrow evening, and for all of us, we will just always be doing this again next week. Next week, I'm thinking it may be time to be doing some spring cleaning, and I may be able to finally clean out the lye tank and see what we've gotten over the winter. But that's next week. So until then, as always, we will end this with a quote from 2001: A Space Odyssey. See you next Wednesday.